Tenants really despise their landlord like we're led to believe out there? And if so, what are the top 3 things that tenants hate the most about their landlord? So about a third of this country rents. And we'd like to know why we're being told that landlords are evil and they are the big corporations that we should slam down on. And the reason why I say that is because I am a real estate broker. I see this in the policies that come down that affect my business, the documents in my business, how I interact with clients, etc. And there was a recent change, for instance, in California to the lease forms specifically that removed the word landlord from the annals of history since back in the medieval times to housing provider. And that is a movement that's happening around the country in different states and cities, depending on where you live. And nobody really knows what a housing provider is. Nobody calls themselves a housing provider. Even tenants don't call their landlords housing providers. They call them a landlord. So no matter what the words are, it doesn't help anything except for people that may be offended feel better for some reason, and feelings don't pay the bills, okay? So that's one assault on a landlord. It's kind of a painting of what a landlord character is. And you'd be surprised to hear there was a study done in 2018 by the Census Bureau, and it was a study done by taking 48 million housing units in this country, and they found that 71.6% of those housing units were owned by individual investors. And those individual investors owned about 1.5 properties on average, the IRS said, which is interesting, right? And while the survey did find that large corporate landlords own the larger properties by far, significantly the smaller properties, 1 to 4 units, and the smaller duplexes and such are owned by individual investors. They're not your big, huge corporate landlords stealing money and not paying taxes. That's all stuff that's just being painted on them. And I'm not saying all these individual landlords and everyone are not slumlords periodically or not, evil people on their own right, but that's true with anything in this world in any industries. So why are landlords painted in this picture? So you kind of look at, all right, well, how satisfied or dissatisfied really are tenants with their landlords? And I'm not going to call them housing providers because that's ridiculous. I'm not going to lean into that. So what are the statistics here? So Harvard did a study a couple years ago, and they found that over 62% of those that they surveyed, renters, were satisfied with their landlords, which is almost 2/3, I was actually pretty surprised that it was that high, to be honest with you, because I've been listening to what you've been listening out there, and everybody hates their evil landlord. Your evil landlord is actually your friend, your grandmother, your parents who own, maybe yourself, that own a 4-unit building somewhere. So as part of this survey, they found that really a few large issues, there was kind of a litany in the survey of what are you dissatisfied with your landlord about? And there was a few that really are just kind of, you would assume. One is landlord doesn't make any repairs to the property when I call. They don't respond to my complaints. Okay, that's just, to me, that when I was renting, that was my number one complaint. No shock there. The second complaint was that their landlord or property managers were not professional. And that kind of lends to the fact that most of the properties that people are renting in are owned by individual investors. So they're not really equipped to run a professional operation. They don't have staffs of people. They have themselves. My old landlord that my wife and I lived in before, while we were getting married actually, came out himself to make all the repairs and had a huge kind of key ring on his belt. I mean, these are individual people like you and me. And the third one, which is just kind of an economic issue, is that tenants felt like the landlord was stealing all my money. And that's just somebody essentially who probably feels like they want to own something. So to me, that's a good one, even though it seems like a bad complaint. It's actually a good one because that person wants to step up to home ownership at some point, and they hate somebody taking their money. They're becoming financially aware that I could do better with my cash and build equity in a home versus paying a landlord. So no big surprises here. There's a list that goes on and on and on. But this is just a lot of media hoo-ha, okay? And it's not true. And the statistics are proving that most landlords are individual, regular people that don't own much property, that are trying their best. And most renters, almost 2/3 of them, are satisfied for the most part. See you next week on the show. Thanks for tuning in.